Legacy. What in the world does legacy mean to you? Today's topic is legacy. Now, then, us, and them. So first of all, I'd like to define what exactly is legacy. A lot of people think that it's an inheritance, what you leave behind. Well, that's just a small piece of it. It's more than a gift or inheritance. This is your life experiences. This is your beliefs. This is your value system, your traditions. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, a lot of people want to make a contribution to society and, leave something for future generations. This is a way for people to know that their life mattered. They want to make a ding in the universe. Most people do. You can do this intentionally or unintentionally. Like I said, it's the good, the bad, the ugly. For some examples of an unintentional legacy, you might leave a legacy of poverty, debt, welfare, government assistance, alcoholism, addiction. You might leave that kind of legacy for your family unintentionally or intentionally. I'd rather look at it as a positive thing. I want to look at this in terms of what can I leave? I want to make a positive mark in this world. So I want to be very intentional about what it is that I do. And one of the ways that you can think about this is think about at your funeral or at your celebration of life. What is it that you want people to say about you? You need to live your life on purpose. It's more, it's a movement, it's love, it's respect, it's, all of those things are comprised of your legacy. And hopefully, if you're like me, you want those things to be positive. So for my intents and purposes, I want to talk about your generational legacy, meaning I want you to be able to leave generational wealth for your family. But there is a systematic approach that I want to teach you how to do it based on what others have done and what has worked for them. Like I said, I don't follow people whose lives do not emulate where it is that I aspire to go. So I don't pay attention to people who are poor unless I'm learning lessons from them, right? So if I'm looking at somebody who is incredibly wealthy, that has a legacy that I want to emulate, all of those values and things that mean something to me. For example, marriage. If you're wanting a strong marriage, you don't talk to somebody who's been divorced 10 times and take marriage advice from them. If you want good health and fitness, you don't take advice from somebody who's overweight and in bad shape and eats terrible. You want to hang around with people who are healthy and who look like you want to look like. If you want to build wealth, you need to talk to people who have been successful building wealth. And so there's a couple of stages. And like I said before, a lot of this is from Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace University, and all of the baby steppers that, he has done this through multiple thousands. Even I have to look at the amount. It may even be millions of people now that have been through his program successfully and have come out on the other side. So a lot of the information on this early stage is from Dave Ramsey. So it's not mine personally. So I want to give Dave credit. Love his stuff. You can go on. He is #1 syndicated radio talk show host, and now he's got a bunch of different personalities for his legacy. He has built a billion-dollar enterprise without any debt. So he has a remarkable legacy that he's leaving behind. And so today, the 4-part thing that I want to talk about is now, then, us, and them. And the first part is the here and now. This is the hardest part, y'all. This is where you take charge of your personal finances and you come to face reality and you get control. You get control. This is where you do your emergency fund. And remember, in the beginning, I told you your first step is to get $1,000 in an emergency fund right away. Next is you want to get yourself out of debt, everything but your mortgage. You want to just eliminate it using the debt snowball as fast as possible, because that's what's eating up your cash flow, all of that excess debt. You get rid of that, you're going to have a lot of breathing room where you can do some other things with your cash. Next, you want to increase that emergency cash, your emergency fund, up to 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And some of you, well, I've got a retirement check, I don't have to worry about that, I know it's always coming. Well, think about your spouse, because if something happens to you and your estate has to be settled, which we're going to go into a little bit of estate planning a little bit later on, but you need to make sure that you've got some cash reserves to take care of situations in case something happens to that income. So this is whether you already are retired or whether you are planning for it, you need to have an emergency reserve set up. Think about COVID. Think about if the ATM machines go down and you can't access your cash, you know, how are you going to get access to cash? Those type of things. So the here and now is taking charge of your personal finances, increase your income, get out of debt, and, you know, plan your spending, you know, accordingly so that you can get your cornerstone, which is your foundation, set. That is the first piece. That's the here and now. Next, you want to look at the then. That is casting your vision for your future. What is it that you want your future to look like? What do you want your retirement to look like, your golden years? Some of you may be like me and think, you know what, I'm going to work forever because I really enjoy what I'm doing. Well, that's fine. But here's the deal. Your health may not hold up, or something might happen. You may need to cut down on your hours or whatever. So you need to have a very clear, crystal clear picture of what it is that you want your future to look like. What kind of cars do you want to drive? What kind of house do you want to live in? Your travel fund. What is it? What does your days look like? How much is all of that going to cost? That is plan your work and work your plans. So you have to cast that vision. There's a Bible verse that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. So you need to have a vision for your life. You know, you're going to miss the target if you don't know what the target is. Seriously, think about that. If you don't know where you're going, how are you ever going to get there? If you don't know what the destination is, that doesn't make any sense, right? So you can't hit a target that you don't know what it is. So that is the then. Next comes the us, the us. This is your family. This is where you start talking to your children and your grandchildren about financial literacy, about managing money. You want them to understand that God owns it all. You are just stewards and managers of that money. You need to set them up for success. Because if you don't, you've all heard the stories of the trust fund babies or people who have won the lottery, all of that stuff. If they come into an inheritance or something like that and they don't know how to manage the money properly, your generational wealth is going to be gone in a very short period of time. So if wealth is one of those things, and we'll talk about philanthropy here in a minute, but you want to make sure that your children, your grown children, and your grandchildren can handle the responsibility. If they can't, you need to have some things set aside to take care of that. Let's just face it. Some people cannot handle money. They have no wants or needs to do it. They're just blow it and they don't care, you know? So if you have family members like that, you need to be careful and you just set up your estate to take care of those type of situations. So that is, you know, if you are considering building generational wealth, this could change your family tree. This could change that forever, y'all, forever. If you start now, if you start now. So that's the us piece of it. And there's also a Bible verse that says what? A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. It's in there. It's in there. It's in Proverbs. It's in there. So now, the here and now, take charge of your finances. Get your foundation built. Get you a savings account in there. Get you an emergency fund. get rid of your debt except for your mortgage, get that foundation set. Then cast a vision. Where do you want to be? And I actually do this step first because this kind of gets you excited about your future. But just to kind of give you an overview here, you know, it's hard to look at your future sometimes when you're paycheck to paycheck and you can't see what end is up. But I like to do that first. Okay. So you've got your future, and then you bring your family into it and you start training them. Next, now the fun begins. This is when them comes into place. This is where that legacy comes into play. Now you can breathe. Now you start holding your head up, looking around, and you see that single mom or dad on the pew that needs a new car, or they could use a little help with some groceries, or you hear about some mission trip overseas where they need something, or something comes across the TV and it pulls on your heartstrings, and you are finally able to just simply write out a check without even thinking about it. This is, you know, one of those things that God sets you up, and we've talked about this: time, talent, and treasure. Are you using your gifts like God intended? And one piece of your legacy could be philanthropy. I love these stories about the little old lady or the little old man who lived on next to nothing, lived in a little shack down the road, so unassuming. And when they died, they were worth millions. And they had all of these scholarship funds and different things that they had set up for their community, and it just blew everybody away. You know, they probably made nearly minimum wage their whole entire life, but they were frugal and they saved and they invested, and nobody knew it. Nobody knew it. So those are pretty remarkable stories. Other stories, you've seen people who might want their business or their name on a building or a library or something like that. And like I said before, whether we want to or not, we're leaving a legacy behind. It may not be the legacy you would like. You need to be really intentional about it. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind, even though, yes, we have time and talent that we can share with the world to make an impact, but the majority of things, if you really want to make a huge impact on this world, most of the time it's going to take some cash. And the only way that you can do that is by building wealth. And if you recall, wealth is just a simple math problem. It's a math formula. It's assets minus liability equals net worth. And the only way to increase your net worth is to do a couple of things. It's to manipulate one of those two components or both. You can increase your assets by buying more, or you can have an asset that goes up in value called appreciation, or you can eliminate debt, which is your creditors, everything that you owe to your creditors. And if you'll do a combination of those activities over time, you are going to grow your net worth, which means your wealth. And your goal should be every month, you should be growing your net worth. And at the end of the year, you should have a target set up with your financial planning of what your target is to grow your net worth each and every year. And you're thinking, how can I grow my net worth? I mean, I can't afford to buy any assets or anything like that. You grow your net worth temporarily right now in the here and now by doing one of two things: increasing your income, that's cash, and decreasing your liabilities, which is all those debts that you have. So that's what you do right now to improve your net worth. It's not necessarily that you have to go out and buy an asset or an appreciating asset right now. It is simply a math problem. Increasing your cash and having that in savings or whatever for your emergency fund, that's an asset. Getting rid of that credit card debt, that's a liability. Either one of those can increase your net worth. So I look forward to talking to you more about creating a legacy and leaving behind something that could benefit, people from generations to come, including your own family, as well as your local community, your region, the nation, and maybe even a global impact if that is on your heart. Each one of us is different. And again, I think that God puts desires inside each one of our hearts based on our skills, knowledge, abilities, and all of those things that He provides us with. But for sure, you need to look at your belief system, what it is that you are saying to your family, what's important to you, your life experiences, your values, your traditions. And if some of those are negative, let's start thinking about what you can do to change those things. What is it that, when your family and friends think of you right now, what do they automatically think about you? Maybe that's not positive. So you've got plenty of time, if you are still breathing, to make changes. If you're one of those people who have family members who have been in poverty, paycheck to paycheck mentality, government assistance, always robbing Peter to pay Paul, give them the opportunity this year to put a stake in the ground and say, no more. I am going to change my tree. I know my family for generations has been on welfare, but no more. Not going to do that. I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family. I'm going to be the first multimillionaire in my family. I'm going to be the first family member to do X, Y, Z. Draw a line in the sand, folks. It's very, very possible. It just ends up, you have to get a little financial literacy. And again, it's a little tough in the beginning, but once you get started, that snowball starts taking effect and you will start feeling really, really good about where you're going. So I'm going to end that today. Again, I hope this gets you thinking about your legacy and what kind of life you want to live behind for your family and friends and for around the world. My name is Nancy Gaskins, sowing seeds of financial hope and entrepreneurial opportunity in communities around the globe. Remember to catch me on YouTube on my Nancy Gaskins Passive Incomes Generators. Let me know down below in the comments if you're watching this live or on replay. Thanks.